Welcome to this week's roundup. We have a lot to discuss. First of all, of course, the Democratic Convention taking place currently in Chicago, where Kamala Harris just presented her economic policies, and the question remains: are they even viable? Then, of course, there is this new tariff that the EU is imposing on the cars that are produced in China by Tesla. What will it mean for the European consumers? And last but not least, the Nord Stream pipeline that turned out to be blown up by Ukraine. With us today, of course, is Peter Kleppe. He is the editor-in-chief of Riks Europe. Thank you and welcome back.
Thanks, Scarlett. Good to be back.
Let's start with Kamala Harris. So she presented her economic policy during the Democratic Convention. That is this week. And the thing is that, of course, the Democratic Party always positions itself to be there for common people, make prices more, or like food more cheaper so people can buy food and groceries again. But it turns out that groceries under her administration will go up with over 21%. What's going on?
I mean, it's incredible, really. Like, as you say, the price of groceries have gone up a lot. And now what she wants to do is imposing price controls, which probably is unconstitutional in the United States to start with. But I mean, every serious economist will tell you that this, of course, will not solve the issue. I mean, otherwise, if it would solve the issue, then we should have price controls for everything, expensive cars, just regulate the price, expensive food, cut the price, have the government cut the price. So even the magazine The Economist, which is clearly, on the centrist side of things, they have even moved to the center left, you could say. They have harshly criticized this, and on top of that, the same person, Kamala, who wants to introduce price controls to cut the price of food, she is coming up with an avalanche of new taxes. She wants to increase the American corporate tax rates to a rate that is higher than in China, in crony communist China. So I mean, everybody will understand, I think, that when companies have to pay more taxes, of course, this will, at the end of the day, be visible in the invoice for ordinary consumers.
Yeah, because if you look at the numbers, they calculated that her plans will actually increase the national debt up to 189% of the GDP by 2059. That's an astonishing number that will be paid off not by the next generation, but the generation after that, and maybe even the generation after that. What are they doing? Like, did they lose their mind? It seems like they are so out of touch with reality.
Yes, I mean, I think they are out of touch. I mean, the fact that they went with Joe Biden for so long, who is clearly, not, no longer fit to be president. He's simply, he has a health issue, whatever it may be. But the fact that they went along, so long with him, I mean, tells you everything you need to know. And also now, I mean, they have Donald Trump as their opponent. Trump is seen as a clear right-winger. So what they need to do is they need to convince the people in the middle, in the swing states. So let's say rather moderate voters. So to come up with a far-left program of extremely high taxes, price controls. I mean, this will not be helpful to the cause of convincing the middle ground. And nevertheless, that's what they are doing. I mean, they had somehow a new face, Kamala. They had a chance to sort of let her come up with some more moderate proposals, and they. And they didn't do it. And that's probably one of the reasons why Kamala is already behind again. When you look at the betting markets, the betting markets are actually quite interesting. I think it's called Poly Market. For a bit, Kamala was ahead of Trump because she was new, fresh face, etc. Her grace period, so to speak. But now Trump is leading again.
Yeah, because I also think that the Democrats have for Trump that unites them. Overall, they're lacking good policies that are realistic. If you look Democratic Convention. It was more of a sort of hip hop concert with Megan Salon having to perform, and it wasn't really giving a lot of in depth on how they were actually going to improve the United States. Having said that, we move on to another topic, which I think is really crucial, is that last week we had disturbing news on the fact that it turned out that Zelenskyy gave approval to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline too. When this happened, 22, I really want to really emphasize this, that it had an immense effect on the whole economy of Europe. Not just the economy, on actually the energy price. That meant that people were not able to afford their energy bills anymore. They were left in the cold. And because the energy prices were higher, to produce the production of food also became more expensive. So this meant that food also became more expensive. People were really left in the cold. So it's pretty painful to hear that billions are donated to a country, and in return of that, we are left with an energy crisis. And it turns out it was that Germany was already doing an investigation on who actually was the person or the country behind the terrorist attack of the Nord Stream pipeline. And they want to arrest now the head of the military that gave approval of this terrorist attack. He is based in Warsaw, and Warsaw doesn't want to give the suspect. Can you please elaborate on that, Peter?
Well, I think you painted the picture. So there's many aspects to it: European energy security, tensions now between Poland and Germany because Poland allowed this person that Germany was after to escape. Of course, with these things, we should mention that we're never 100% sure. It was already, let's say, suspected that Ukraine was somehow behind it, but then would Ukraine do it without the support of the United States? Possibly, because if you actually read the Wall Street Journal story, which now came up with this new disclosures, it's written by a great journalist, Bojan Banchevsky. So if you read it, then you can see that Ukraine, or the leadership of Ukraine, according to that story, did ultimately not allow it. It was some runaway elements in the Ukrainian military, at least according to the story. Again, who knows really? The fact is that this, this needs to be investigated. We cannot say that, there was no gas coming through Nord Stream 2 yet. Energy markets are long term, so this has an effect on the price, even if there was no gas yet. It's also true that Putin has been cutting off the gas to Europe, not the other way around. Of course, that was a retaliation for certain sanctions that Europe had imposed. But I think swiping it under the carpet is not a good idea. If we consider Ukraine as a friend, surely we should ask our friends some questions when they blow up our energy infrastructure. So I think it's a big story. It's not going to go away, and it's having a big effect in Germany.
Well, Peter, like if you look at, for example, the US, it's the news channel that is being paid with tax money. They did not even say a word about Zelenskyy involvement in this whole catastrophe. And to paint a picture, it was actually the Dutch MIVD that was already up to date about this terrorist attack. The MIVD is actually the Dutch secret intelligence service. They said the CIA contacted Zelenskyy. They told Zelenskyy, look, just don't blow it up. Zelenskyy, okay, I will not do it. Of course, it did happen. And I think like a lot of people in the Netherlands are feeling very frustrated because they're literally that they were left in the cold. The government was already up to date about it. The suspicion is that Rutte, at that time prime minister, now next secretary general of NATO, was up to date on the fact that Zelenskyy was involved in this terrorist attack. It's very painful. It leaves us with a taste of betrayal. Germany already said that they're going to cut the money that they were going to give to Ukraine. Peter, do you think other countries will follow this example of Germany?
I'm not so sure. You have to know that, of course, in Germany specifically, this has to do with the fact that its top constitutional court has ordered the government to respect the debt break, which is a fine idea to make sure the politicians don't spend too much money. But also democratically, there's a lot of question marks in Germany whether it makes sense to send so much money to Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a democratic issue above all. Wherever you stand, if you think it's a good idea to send arms to Ukraine or not, clearly we cannot have other countries, certainly allies, which Ukraine ultimately is, blowing up our crucial infrastructure. That is completely unacceptable. And yeah, I think it's good that we saw a bit more light on this, but it's certainly not going to be the end of it.
We're going to keep up to date. And speaking on money and economics, we arrived at our last topic, which is that the European Commission has significantly reduced the import duty on Tesla vehicles that are produced in China. It would have been 20%. They cut it down to 9%. What does it actually mean for the European consumer?
I think this is crazy, right? So the EU imposes electric vehicles on European consumers. It basically imposes a ban on the combustion engine from 2035, which in industry terms, that's tomorrow. I mean, these are very long-term arrangements and planning and everything. So, and then it concludes that too many of these electric vehicles are coming from China, of course, often subsidized is China, communist China. That's what they do. And it decides then to impose tariffs on the vehicles that it wants to promote supposedly for the climate, which is already very questionable if you look at the total emission levels resulting from the production of electric vehicles. I mean, tariffs will easily be circumvented. Maybe we'll have more EVs from Vietnam. There's all kinds of ways to check that. There's a risk now that China will come up with retaliation. It has already suggested it will retaliate against European dairy products. So this simply looks like a bad idea. You know, if China is subsidizing a lot of electric vehicles and they're dumping it on our markets, frankly, I would say fine. It's good. It's Chinese taxpayers ultimately paying for cheaper cars for us. The one thing that we should not be doing is to ban combustion engine produced cars. That's where European producers have a fantastic advantage. We're just very good in producing combustion engine motors. So only suicidal economic policies would decide to impose a ban on that. So let's just get rid of this combustion engine ban as soon as possible, and then try to lower the tone with China. Electric vehicles have nothing to do with our security or anything. This is clearly purely economic. So I would say, yeah, Chinese electric vehicles are welcome. And if the market decides that they prefer these electric vehicles over combustion engines, then we can talk again. But I don't think we're going to be there as quickly as we think.
Peter, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, insights, and of course, thank you so much, viewers, for watching. We'll see you next week.